Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the IronSquid. It's brought to you by Astro Gaming and Twitch.tv. My name is Total Biscuit.
And I am D Apollo.
Welcome once again. And we've got a new group, which means fresh faces and fresh violence. Plenty of fighting going on here. Another group of 5 for the IronSquid, consisting of 2 Zerg, 2 Terran, and a lone Protoss once again. The Protoss, sadly, a little bit underrepresented in this tournament.
Yes, they are. I mean, we only have 1 Protoss in each group, but this time we have the Boss Toss representing. So I think things are going to change a little bit, and hopefully we can get a Protoss player through. As Group A, we did have 2 Terrans go through, so definitely looking for overall balance, really a Protoss and Zerg to go through here, and that potentially could happen.
It could, certainly. MC has been playing incredibly well lately, without question. Coming fresh off his IEM victory against Puma, who of course went through in Group A, so we could potentially see them clash again.
Yeah, that would be funny, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be, He's been doing really well lately. He had a bit of a slump for a while, and then he came back and just smashed everything, and it was quite the thing to behold. I've got to say, MC's certainly one of my favourite Protoss players, so I'm looking forward to seeing him perform in this group, and we might as well just run down the entire group. We're going to talk a little bit about the matchups we're going to be seeing over the next few shows, as well as then briefly talking about what we're going to be seeing in this particular Wednesday show. So Group B is looking something like this. You've got MC, the sole representative of the Protoss race in Group B. You've then got Evil Genius's EGIdrA. You've got TSL.Symbol. And then mouzThorZaIN and the mighty IMMVP.
Well, talking about slumps, as you said before, we do have EGIdrA again, who just hasn't been performing for a very long time. So he's definitely got to shape up, especially if we do want a Zerg player to advance through. But on the other hand, you know, the other Zerg player we do have here, Symbol, is a very, very talented individual who did qualify. We casted him qualifying into the IronSquid himself, and he showed some excellent unit control, a lot of heavy aggression. So I'm really interested to see how he's going to be competing in this group. It is a very difficult group, of course, as you mentioned. ThorZaIN, the Spoon, Terran, of course, and then we have, you know, the GSL champion MVP. It is a very difficult group, and I'm sure a lot of people are very excited to see how this one's going to break down.
Yes, certainly. I'm intrigued to see, and this is going to be one of the first matchups we're going to be seeing today, Symbol versus EGIdrA in his ZvZ, because the way that Symbol got here, he ploughed, of course, through a lot of very, very good players indeed, including his teammate, TSL.Pult, but the final was actually a ZvZ against Shine. And he showed some amazing, incredible play there against the Team SCV Life player. Once again, another TSL player. The TSL guys really did get in on this IronSquid with a vengeance, and Symbol was, in fact, the only TSL player to get through.
Yeah, he was, and, you know, not only beating his teammate Pult, who recently won Assembly 2 and has shown that he is one of the best Terran players, but the thing is, in that Zerg vs. Zerg, we actually saw not only his Zerg, Symbol Zerg, that is, shine out, but we saw his patience, because if I remember correctly, he actually started that series 0-2 down, and then I think he came back to win 3-2, so that shows his patience and his ability to work under pressure, which he's definitely going to be needing in Group B.
Well, all of these groups are pretty intense, and this one is certainly no exception, especially bearing in mind that he is going up against EGIdrA, who is certainly not bad at ZvZ by any stretch, but as you said, has been suffering somewhat in a bit of a slump, really, since he went to Korea. We had that resurgence of EGIdrA in November, where he basically took 3 events, and he's looking great for EGIdrA. Then he went to Korea, and suddenly everything started to go horribly wrong. We saw what was going on with show matches. He was losing very badly there, and I don't know, he seems like he's slipped into his old attitude, and he's always said it himself that he is kind of his own worst enemy. His attitude is a problem for him, and he did the best when his manager, Alex Garfield, was really kind of life coaching him, and he got the right attitude in his mind, and then suddenly destroyed everybody. But EGIdRA's showing some unfortunate weaknesses at the moment. He's very vulnerable, of course, to early game attacks, and he's still playing a very rigid, mechanical style that can be easily exploited by anyone that knows what he likes to do.
Absolutely, and I'm sure Symbol in game number 1 here will be wanting to exploit those weaknesses of EGIdRA, especially because in a group that is so refined with these players, it's very easy to prepare strategies and builds designed to beat individual players, and I'm sure that that's something SKMC would have looked upon more so than EGIdrA, as EGIdrA would have played, more mechanical, more generic style of play. So it will be a very interesting Zerg versus Zerg, which will open us up.
That's very, very true. And this also gives us a nice opportunity to introduce the other two members of this group, the two Terran representatives, one foreigner and one Korean, who will also be battling it out later on in the show in the TVT, which I have been looking forward to for a long time. We've already seen a great set of TVTs in Group A, but this TVT might even trump them all. We'll see, because we've got mouzThorZaIN from Sweden and IMMVP from South Korea. That is going to be one hell of a match.
Absolutely, no doubt about that. ThorZaIN is so good in TVT. He well, not really that he's shown us, but other players have shown us from Korea. I mean, they actively go ahead and post on Twitter saying, "Hey, ThorZaIN sent me a replay, and it's an amazing build. He creates builds. He's so well." Understanding of TVT, he just understands the matchup so well, and these builds that can demolish a player unexpectedly. And I really do believe that ThorZaIN has a chance against MVP, but at the same time, it is MVP. He is one of the best Terran players, so it's all to play for.
I'd also like to point out that MVP is probably looking for revenge for his team, because at the end of last year, if you recall correctly, in IPL Team Arena Challenge, ThorZaIN was responsible for an all-kill of, at that point, Quantic Incredible Miracle, the partnership there. And that really will have shaken that team up just a little bit. So I'm sure vengeance is required here for MVP.
I'm sure he'll look for that.
Without question. The problem, I suppose, ThorZaIN's got is that while he's great at TVT, his recent records against Koreans have not been that great. In fact, his arch nemesis right now is Polt. He has lost 3 consecutive MSI Pro Cups to Polt, 2 of them being 0-3.
Yeah, I mean, the Koreans, man, they keep on getting stronger and stronger, and it's been displayed in every tournament. For example, just in, Group A here, it was 2 Koreans advancing over the 2 foreigners, of course. So, somebody has to step up, and in this group we do have ThorZaIN and EGIdrA representing the non-Koreans. Will they be good enough? Will they play good enough in this group to advance through over the Koreans? That's what we're here to find out.
That we are. Will we see an all-Korean going forward? It is a possibility. We may get 2 from every group going into the round of 8, and they all be Korean. In fact, I'm looking at the composition, and in fact, every group has 3 Koreans and 2 foreigners in it. So the likelihood of an all-Korean round of 8 onwards is actually very high.
Yeah, it's not fair. It's 3v2 in every group. It's not fair.
Absolutely true. Every group is unfair one way or the other. It's a brutal tournament, but it's got a really great prize. So, needless to say, the best of the best have turned out for this particular event. We've already seen one of the best, one of these big 4 that came in, the special announcement from IronSquid being, of course, that Boxer, MMA, Nesty, and MVP would be participating. One of those guys is already out. Boxer is done for in Group A with Puma and Marine King Prime advancing. So will we see MVP fail to get through? That's a good question. One of those legends is in every group in this tournament, but they're up against some very stiff competition.
Yeah, it's just going to be so good. I mean, I'm actually just looking over the groups and I'm like, which one is really going to be
which is the group of death?
Yeah, and it's so difficult to call. This one's actually really difficult. There are some weaknesses in the group, I feel, but overall, this is like the highest skill tournament there is at the moment. No, by no doubt. It's clear to see just by looking at the groups.
I have to wonder if ThorZaIN will thrive in this environment, because people have said this about ThorZaIN a lot, and I believe that it is true, that ThorZaIN really thrives when he has time to prep, and he is able to prepare builds based on specific maps, based on specific opponents, as opposed to in an environment where he's having to play one opponent after another in, say, a live LAN setting where he generally doesn't do as well. I mean, that's relative to how well ThorZaIN does. He's a great player, incredibly good, easily one of the best foreign Terran, and he just does so much better in this kind of environment. So will that give him the edge he needs to beat MVP, I wonder? I don't know. That is a little bit questionable.
Yeah, you bring up a really good point, actually. I mean, think about, the TSL when he had time to prep for every match. He ended up winning the tournament. He actually did really well in Korea when he went over there. And I would not be surprised if he did pull off results that people were not expecting, especially against MVP here today, and more importantly against MC in the future too.
Yeah, certainly. I'm intrigued to see what's going to be happening. But before we continue, if some of you have joined this tournament late, you might be wondering what's been going on, and we've got a recap right here of Group A. So check out this video, which we like to call Previously on IronSquid. Alright, ladies and gents, that is what you missed if you didn't watch the last 4 shows. You should regret that, but the VODs are available if you want to watch the full games, and I would certainly recommend it, especially the games from Show 4, which were quite ridiculous. Marine King versus Boxer is a TBT I don't think I'll ever forget, and indeed Puma versus Boxer as well. That was great. So, some good stuff coming up there, but what we're looking at right now is a interesting ZvZ, the first ZvZ that we've had in this tournament thus far. Evil Genius's EGIdrA, for the longest time known as the Foreigner Hope, the guy that stayed in Code S for a very long time, versus the up-and-comer TSL.Symbol that doesn't really have any big accomplishments to his name as of yet. I mean, he won an ESV TV Korean Weekly. I believe that was late last year. I think it was in December. And then, of course, he won the qualifier for IronSquid 1, and aside from that, he hasn't accomplished anything.
Yeah, and unfortunately for him, you know, the one shot he had in GSL, which is a funny story really, he had one shot in GSL, made it through Code B, and his one shot in Code A was actually against Genius, you know, the later, the future Code S champion. So, you know, all that hard work to actually get into the GSL and then get slapped back out of the entire league straight away, it's a little bit unfortunate. And as we both know, you know, he's shown excellence. You know, the qualifier was a really beautiful play, an amazing talent to watch, and I do feel that he will get there. He used to be a Brood War player. He used to be a B-teamer for the old team Hwasong Oz, so I have no doubt that during this year, and maybe even in this tournament, we could actually see a breakout performance.
We could, and I hope that we do, because what we saw from him in the qualifier was very exciting and dynamic play. It was patient, but it was also, it had a lot of flair to it. Borrowed banelings in particular are a specialty of Symbol. Now, as to how relevant that will be in a ZvZ, which more often than not is resolved in the first 10 minutes of play, well, that is a different question entirely, and it may simply come down to simple micro, or indeed potentially build order losses one way or the other. So I'm intrigued. I like ZvZ. ZvZ is becoming a very dynamic mirror, so I'm looking forward to seeing what we have here.
Yeah, I think we're going to be seeing a very high-paced game for sure. EGIdrA, you know, he's very calculated. He's actually pretty good in this matchup, to be fair. He's shown good games against Nesty here as well most recently, but I feel that if EGIdrA wants to do well in this tournament, he actually has to win this series, no doubt about that. I mean, he's going up against mouzThorZaIN, MVP, and MC after this. Those 3 games alone, especially including his arch nemesis, they're going to be very, very difficult. And this is almost a must-win for EGIdrA if he wants to go through. We saw what happened to Todd in Group A, losing the first game, losing the second game, and then it just snowballs out of control. So for EGIdrA, for EG fans, this is a must-win.
It is, and ZvZ is perhaps the place where you can pull off that really solid win. Maybe even, say, 2-0, which, if it comes down to map score, could end up being fairly important for you. And that must be done before he goes on to face some very scary people in the rest of this group. It's weird to consider EGIdrA as an underdog, but with the caliber of the group that he's in, I think that we can safely say that he's in that position right now.
That's, yeah, actually, I mean, you just putting it there, and I'm like, wow, you know, did he say that?
Really?
I'm like,
yeah.
God, really? Is that, you know, is that where EGIdra's gone down to now? As you said earlier, he was the foreigner hope. You know, he was the player that everybody looked towards to carry the flame, but, you know, that's not the case right now. And in Group B, he's probably, in terms of predictions, almost at the bottom, if not at the bottom, very close between Symbol and EGIdrA. So he has a lot to show, and he has a lot to actually say to everybody, hey guys, you know, I am still there, I am still one of the best, and you know, what better place to show.
Yeah, I want to see what this time in the Slayer's house has actually given him, honestly. We've seen a few show matches here and there from him, we've seen some results in tournaments. He didn't do all that well in MLG, to say the least, but I just want to see the old EGIdrA, and by the old EGIdrA, I'm talking about the one that we saw really in the early stages of StarCraft 2, or indeed in November, when he did go beast mode and he went on a fantastic roll. Will we see that from him, or is he going to fall to Symbol? I guess we're about to find out, folks, because we're going into Game 1 right here of Symbol versus EGIdrA. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first game of this best-of-3 series between evil geniuses EGIdrA. He is in the green trunks and he is playing Zerg to the southwest of this particular map, which is of course the Daybreak, versus his opponent. It is TSL.Symbol. He is in the blue trunks playing Zerg to the northeast.
And if EGIdRA's going to win this series and really, you know, get that kickstart within Group B, then he has to pull off the win on this map. And I think this map's going to be best suited towards his style. Daybreak naturally being a more defensive map due to the longer distances between bases. And aggression can always be hidden behind bases and behind the creep line, which is the most important thing, as obviously if overlords go in, the queens kill them. But until that point, if anything does come, because of the distances between bases, EGIdrA will have more than enough time to actually adapt to the scenario. So I feel this is going to be quite a good map for him.
Yeah, I certainly think so. The extractor trait coming out here from Symbol. What is it about Korean Zergs? They always go for this, and if I recall correctly, the 9 Overlord has been proven to be ever so slightly more efficient.
Yeah, like 5 minerals or something, and most people don't even look into that, and they're like, well, whatever, you know, 5 minerals, and that's why we still see people do it. They don't do it. Yeah.
Personal preference, really. I think it's more of a comfort thing than anything else, as far as I can see. Overlords now moving across the map and forming a very neat line, as they tend to on both this map and in this particular matchup. And as you've mentioned, the idea being that if you get those Overlords in position, you've got a lot of warning as to what's coming at you. And both of these guys also going to go for hatch first.
Yeah, they do. And with the Overlords is that as long as one's outside of the destructible debris on either bases, and then you have one south in case they run around the long way, you're absolutely fine. You'll have so much time to prepare. But we do start to see a bit of deviation coming out here as we see EGIdRA deciding to go for the extractor rather than the spawning pool first. He grabs a cannon of both at the same time, but he's showing us that he wants to get speed. He wants to be the one with map control, the one to be scouting, because as we said, it's very difficult to scout past the creep line with Overlords, but if you have Zergling speed and Zerglings, then you do have that option.
Yes, you do. You also have the option to actually turn on the heat if need be, if you see an opportunity for that. Admittedly, the problem being that your opponent can react quite rapidly to that kind of aggression, and maybe you overextend yourself and you end up being in a nasty economic position. This is a knife-edge matchup, as many mirrors tend to be, and some might even argue this is even more knife-edge than PvP. One big mistake, especially in early Baneling wars, can cost you the game.
Yeah, they absolutely can, and both players have to be so careful about that. We do see both of them now scouting each other's hatchery. Like, alright, cool. If you'll play macro first, that's cool. I have also. So both of these guys probably drone. We actually see a deviation here from EGIdrA, who is only getting 2 Zerglings. He's like, why do I need 4? You've gone hatchery, you're not going aggression. So that's actually pretty good for EGIdrA, who takes a little bit of a lead in this game early because he's getting the speed first, and then he's also only built those 2 initial links. But does decide to build 2 more after getting a couple of drones, but just has a little bit of a better income because of that.
Yeah, and the problem being, I suppose, if you get ling speed, but you only have 2 lings, there's not a huge amount you can do about it. You can scout, of course. You don't really gain a lot of map control because you can't take a straight-up fight one way or the other. But adding a couple or more on there makes sense. And someone made an analogy and a comparison a while ago that ZvZ like this is very much like playing a game of chicken. Like, you see what your opponent's doing, and you do it a bit later, and you goad your opponent into going just a little bit more extreme, and it's a match of, at least in the first few minutes, very minor deviations and changes.
And very, very interesting here. EGIdRA's still in gas, and he's got the Baneling Nest coming down as well, so he could show us some aggression here. And he does get a full scout of his opponent with those 2 initial Zerglings. Sees the double spine crawler coming down. Sees that his opponent is only mining minerals, not gas. And EGIdRA now has a couple of options. He can go ahead and be aggressive with this and try to bust through with Ling or Banelings, or the best option, to be honest, is sit with a Baneling Nest. That doesn't matter. Take a 3rd base, because what really is your opponent going to be doing to your 3rd base, especially when he has 3 spine crawlers down?
Yeah, he's not going to have the numbers, and even if he just goes in with lings, then you have defensive banelings available to deal with that. Symbol's now going to throw down 3 extractors on top of that immediately. Attempted run-by is, of course, thwarted by this double queen block here. Symbol currently actually sitting on 4 queens, which is a fairly large number, I feel, for this stage of this matchup.
Yeah, I mean, he's got 2 to block the ramp, and then 2, of course, for the lava injects, and it is a big, big investment. He will have decent creep spread going into the mid-stage of this game, but to be honest, it hasn't really helped his economy that much, aside from his gases obviously earlier than EGIdRA's, but the drone count's relatively close, and EGIdRA's pulling ahead in long term because of this 3rd base. He does have access to a 5th and 6th gas as well, so overall, I do prefer EGIdRA's build going into the stages, but of course, because of the early gas, Symbol does have a tech advantage as he's teching fast.
Yes, that is true. The lair is on the way for Symbol here. We've got a macro hatch coming out of Symbol as opposed to a 3rd base. 3rd base is entirely scouted. Symbol knows that it's there, but he can't really do anything to it just yet. Roach Warren coming out from EGIdRA here as well. A curious choice. Still hasn't gone to lair yet, and is only just now taking the 3rd gas here.
Yeah, EGIdRA's going to be playing a very ground army, so he won't really be looking to tech up to Spire or Infestors very early. So he'll be playing Roach and then into Infestors later on, definitely, because if he does try to tech up here, the tech's going to be out faster from Symbol, so EGIdRA doesn't want to fight with fire. He'd rather use something else, of course. And without the 3rd base here from Symbol, Symbol only has one option, which is to tech, and he's gone for a double evolution chamber build. Oh no, is it just one? Sorry. No, it is double. Okay, so he's gone double evolution chambered, and then he's gone for a Roach Horn, and then probably Roach speed of his own. But he's going to be hitting a very beautiful timing here, where 1-1, of course, overtakes EGIdRA's pure 1-0.
There's also one thing I want to point out, that Symbol's Overlord spread compared to EGIdRA's is far superior. He basically has all avenues covered. He's got amazing vision across the map, whereas while EGIdRA had that map control for a while and kind of still does, he still can't cover all angles. It does concern me just a little bit there. Whatever the case, Symbol's now starting to pump out some Roaches of his own, going for Burrow and, of course, the speed upgrade, and we've got Roaches coming for EGIdRA as well, but since his lair is very late, we don't have those crucial upgrades coming in.
Yeah, EGIdRA, the reason why he doesn't have any map control is he's very scared about the Spire. So if he has overlords everywhere like Symbol does, then he's going to lose them all. But EGIdRA should be fine, even though he doesn't have the tech, which we do see from Symbol in terms of double upgrades and Roach speed. Roach speed doesn't matter. As long as EGIdRA doesn't move off his own creep, he actually needs to connect his natural to the 3rd. And Roaches are fine on creep, and he'll have a significant amount of numbers. Actually, EGIdRA's, at 70 drones almost, compared to just 54. And the income rate is heavily flavored towards flavored. Oh my god! Okay,
delicious
favored
income
towards EGIdRA, and yeah, he's actually really fine here.
Yes, he is, and a small force of Symbol now moving out. Did it get seen? Well, actually, EGIdRA's got an Overseer, so that's certainly not a problem there. A second Overseer, in fact, so he's really going for it in terms of the scouting and the detection. Lots of roaches moving in. SKMC can't really do anything to that third whatsoever. And SKMC is actually the one now going for infestors. We've got +2 coming out for EGIdrA pretty much immediately after Lair. More roaches being added on. And his opponent going for pathogen glands. And EGIdrA now just looking to push out a bit.
Yeah, I mean, EGIdrA has to be very careful. Even though his roach speed is near completion, like he's walking into an opponent that's been more on the defensive side here. So I hope for EGIdRA's sake that he's just poking out, not to really do damage, but to fall back upon, you know, putting indirect pressure on. Because he doesn't. I really don't think he should be taking a fight. He has, of course, SKMC has 2/2 upgrades. Infestors are almost on the way out too. So we'll see what EGIdRA's doing.
Yeah, I'm not entirely convinced that he can do much, honestly. It's 1-1 here for SKMC. The +2 is on its way for EGIdrA, but it's nowhere near completion at this stage. No attempted aggression coming from SKMC at the moment up to the top, who seems content just to sit on these two bases. The drone count is now an awful lot closer. We've got EGIdRA adding on yet more drones, in fact. He's going to have a very high drone count very shortly, and looking just to get his pathogen glands and his infestors out as well. But once again, that tech is a little bit slow here from EGIdRA.
And we do have SKMC pushing out, and because of the slow tech from EGIdRA, he has to be careful, and I'm really scared of him being in the center of the map here. Infestors will be on the way very shortly here. The biggest window ever for SKMC is when 2-2 finishes, but he's actually moving down here. Does have an upgrade lead over EGIdRA, but definitely not a #1 yet.
Yep, and here we go. Roach on roach action in the center of the map. Finally, some damage being done. Now, I would say that EGIdRA, of course, has the numbers advantage, and that +1 armor isn't really going to make that much of a difference, as we can see. The numbers are really all that matter here, and forward EGIdRA goes, pushing SKMC all the way back. Good damage done there by EGIdRA, and a significant roach lead of 35-20.
Yeah, EGIdRA just wants to back off now and wait for his infestors. 4 are about to pop out with +2 as well and borrow. Yeah, that's going to be really nice for EGIdRA. If he goes now, it's of course a waste of money. But on the other hand, SKMC's 2-2 is getting close, man. And when that finishes, he will have a significant lead over his opponent, because it'll be 2-0 versus 2-2. And that's when a big difference will come into play. But EGIdRA smartly now going for this 4th base, but likewise we see SKMC doing exactly the same.
Yep, they're just going to trade their 4ths here, and both of these guys are pretty much maxed out on roaches and a couple of infestors. EGIdRA's got 53 roaches, a fairly absurd number there. Burrow is available for SKMC. It doesn't have tunneling claws, and we also see Burrow available for EGIdRA as well. But it's the Burrow that matters, really, as opposed to the actual tunneling claws upgrade. Both of these guys just posturing at the moment, trying to get position. That +2 is about to kick in for SKMC, and that may trigger him to go, as you pointed out. He is maxed out, so there's no point in him sitting any further than that. Once that 2-2 goes, I can just see it coming. SKMC's just going to crash down on EGIdRA.
Yeah, and in these Roach Wars, it's all about position too. If anybody walks into the opponent, they're going to be more clumped up. Therefore, Infestors and Fungroth will do a lot of damage. And I really do like the use of Changelings all the time here by SKMC. Haven't seen it at all from EGIdRA. But SKMC always getting in there, just checking the upgrades, checking the army composition. 2-2 is finished now for SKMC. He has an opportunity to go in. Whether he'll take it or not, we'll see. But, you know, if he does walk down these narrow point ways, the ramps, even through the middle, the Fungroth could play a deciding factor in the game. We do see EGIdRA, though, at a hive, and with a Spire coming down, but it's a little bit off for a greater Spire timing. So it's maybe just for to continue with upgrades.
Yes, could very well be. The hive is going to be done slightly before SKMC's as well, but SKMC's kind of, I don't know, maybe he waits for I mean, he could wait for Tunneling Claws here, or he could just be playing defensively and saying to EGIdRA, well, come and get me, because he knows he's got an upgrade advantage. He's fully scouted his opponent's force. He knows what he's up against here. We've got a Hydra Den coming down here for EGIdRA as well, so looking to mix that force up a little bit, as well as +3 missile attack coming in. But I have to wonder who's going to end up getting the upper hand here. There's a lot of spines coming down for SKMC, so he's certainly not messing around there. But he's got Tunneling Claws, and that seems to have triggered him to go. Or maybe not. Oh, he's going to go to intercept, actually. There's a very small Roach force moving in here that is going to take quite significant damage. A Roach run-by coming here, right into the main. He's going to gain some nice information. The question is, will he do any damage? And to be honest, he's doing this for one reason. He wants to clean out his Roach count just a little bit so that he can actually get some Hydralisks in there.
Yeah, he does. Hydras are going to prove really nice there. There was 4 Infestors running towards IGIdRA's third, but it was picked up and killed immediately. 4 that were borrowed. So unfortunately for SKMC, he does take a bit of damage there. But as you said, very smartly, that he's just clearing out roaches. He's gone Hydra Tech. The Spire is only for defensive purposes in case Broodlords come out, that he can easily make Corruptors. And IGIdRA now with double Evolution Chambers starting to crawl back in terms of the upgrade war, but it's still 2-2 with 3-3 being made once again here. So there is still an advantage for SKMC. When he does decide to take that, we'll have to find out.
Oh yes, and the composition looking really nice for IGIdRA here. I do like the addition of Hydralisk. So does SKMC apparently, because he's doing exactly the same thing. Ventral Sax is coming in for SKMC right here though, so there are opportunities to start doing economic damage and not to just fight in a straight up... I suppose it's just a brute force war between these two ground armies here. There's not going to be an awful lot of finesse involved in it. Tunneling Claws is available for SKMC. Do you think this is really going to affect the fight all that much?
Tunneling Claws? Not so much really, because they're just going to borrow anyway, and Tunneling Claws of course increases the regen, but I don't think it will, because the brute force of the army, it's not going to make that much difference, because when they do borrow, they're going to be underground, not doing any damage. So I feel that if he hits his upgrades well, then I think he can win. But will IGIdRA decide to hit before, though? The problem is, though, you have to find an opening. You know, if you don't find an opening, then you can never fight clumped up versus spread out. If there is an opening available, then someone will jump for it. And we actually see SKMC sending roaches to the top left here, trying to obviously go for this 4th base, but there's just no holes. You know, IGIdRA's already there.
This is to draw him out of position, because there's a Nidus Worm somewhere. I have no idea where at this stage. Oh, it's at the back of the main right here for SKMC, and that is devastating potentially. Roaches are just going to now stream into IGIdRA's base. Nothing was done about that Nidus Worm, and the army is completely out of position. And that was a nice trick there by SKMC. He drew IGIdRA's army out of position. He's now going to be able to crush the 4th here as well, potentially, and is now overrunning. The Hive's about to go down as well, and IGIdRA in so much trouble.
Oh, wow, you know, he's losing stuff at the 4th base, too, and loses Infestors needlessly. Hydras versus Roaches. IGIdRA getting torn apart here. And remember, SKMC's army is expendable, man. He has so much money.
Yeah, he could just replace this, no problem at all. He's got the bases, he's got the lava for it, and there's the GG, wow, as SKMC lays down a carpet of infested Terran eggs on the 4th. Whoa, okay, well that was 18 minutes of posturing, followed by 2 minutes of annihilation there by SKMC. A nice little move. I saw the Ventral Sax and I'm thinking, right, what he's looking to do here is IGIdRA's just going to play very passive, as you can see, and he played passive for such a long time. He had 200 for about 5 minutes, throws away a few roaches to mess around with his force composition a little bit, but he had 4k in the bank by the end of that, and he was also building 26 roaches and 3 corruptors plus upgrades, so he had the money, I feel, to start throwing his army away more. You know what the really silly thing is as well? Look at the supply count difference between these two right now. Yeah. At the end of this game, bear in mind, IGIdRA GG'd 186 supply to 107. And I know that, of course, SKMC could have very easily replenished, but then again, so could IGIdRA. So the assassination of that hive was apparently enough to trigger him to say, I can't do anything. That's it. I'm done.
I'm just looking at the minimap. He will clean up inside his main base. That's for sure. He will recover his main base. He did lose the hive. At the top left on that 4th base, there's only 2 roaches there, when there's more than enough for IGIdRA to go in. But I think what's really annoyed IGIdRA in this to push him out of the game was, I think, the infested Terrans that were going to pick off that base, no doubt. Yeah. And they were picking off the single Broodlord he has also. And then he also knows that SKMC has the same amount of money and has taken no damage whatsoever. But that was, like you said, 2 boxers staring at each other, and then one guy punches him in the face, and, you know, that's it. You know, it's a weird way. It's a weird game.
I mean, it wasn't even a knockout punch either. This guy gets punched in the face once and just, like, throws in the towel and says, well, that's it. I could definitely understand what IGIdRA's logic is, though. You've just explained it perfectly. He knew that his opponent hadn't taken any damage and also had more money. I don't know if he really knew how large his army was in comparison. We can look at army supply. It's 138 to 52. There were 26 more roaches coming in. A counter-attack could have done significant damage before new units could have come out for SKMC, I feel. There were spine crawlers on the front base here, but this base at the bottom, not so well defended. 4 spines, easily smashed through that with +3, which I believe he had by that stage. Yeah, I'm fairly sure he did, and he was about to get +2 as well. So, I don't know, you can always overanalyze an IGIdRA game when this kind of thing happens, but at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is that Symbol wins that game and takes one up in this best-of-3 series. And we'll see if EGIdrA can pull it back or whether he will lose 2-0 against Symbol in, quite frankly, a crucial must-win game because the rest of this group is not looking any prettier, I've got to say. So we're going to take a short break, and when we come back, Game 2 of EGIdrA versus Symbol. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Game 2 between Evil Genius's EGIdrA. He is in the green trunks, and he is playing Zerg to the west of the Antigua shipyard, versus his opponent, TSL.Symbol, in the blue trunks, playing Zerg to the east.
And any form of strategy, this is a very open map. Anything can be played out here, whether it be aggression, whether it be a more defensive stance. So I am excited to see how this will go down, but like I said at the start of Game 1 on Daybreak, that was really EGIdRA's map to win. That is the most offensive map in the map pool, really. So this may be difficult for EGIdRA, especially going up against Symbol, who has shown that he can play aggression in Zerg vs Zerg like nobody else, especially in the games against Shine that got him into here in the final of the qualifiers. So we'll see how this is going to go down. EGIdRA, he has to keep focused and he has to not get stressed at all. This is a must-win series.
Yeah, he's got to be pretty much stone cold killer from this point on in this series. He can't let that first game affect him. It depends. I wonder if he even watched the replay. Perhaps he did. Perhaps he knew what happened, and that can sometimes be even worse, because I think maybe if he'd seen the supply count difference and maybe thought just to himself, perhaps it wasn't really worth going out that early in that game. Perhaps there was a possibility to come back and do damage, and if he's allowed that to shake him, then I'm very worried for him, because we know how he can get, and he is his own worst enemy.
Indeed he is, and let's hope that doesn't affect him here. We do have Hatchery first, have Hatchery first, and coming out from Symbol here also. So this is going to be, this. Of course the start of the game will be a lot slower, but we'll see who decides to take gas, whether it be EGIdRA again, and he does decide to take it pretty fast here, but likewise so does Symbol. So toe-to-toe so far, both have aggressive options available.
Yeah, and I have to wonder if Symbol will be the one to take it. I have a feeling he will be, slightly later on his pool. Not that that makes a huge difference with the distance on this map, but it wouldn't surprise me if Symbol decided to turn the heat on. Having seen what happened in the first game, it was 18 minutes of posturing, really. No damage was done until about 18 minutes into the game. So I have to think Symbol says, right, well, having analyzed what my opponent does, maybe we should try and crack him a bit earlier. And that wouldn't be a bad idea against EGIdRA, who is famously not strong against early game pressure.
Yeah, I mean, he drops a lot of series, a lot of tournaments all over the place due to that. Especially within the recent IEM that we saw him compete in. He dropped so incredibly fast in that group stage, but we'll see what he's going to do here. He's going to mine up to 100 gas, of course, but whether he stays in, whether he throws down his Baneling Nest, the safest option for EGIdRA here, if we're going to look at safe options, is to get speed, mine up to 50 gas, and then throw the Baneling Nest down, and then build a Baneling Nest. But we see EGIdRA not doing that. He takes out of gas here, so he will only have speed here. They both of them know that they both expanded, but if aggression does come and Symbol stays in gas, which we are seeing, EGIdRA's going to be defending with only Lings against Ling Baneling. That's really difficult, no matter how good you control this.
That's against someone of the caliber of Symbol. I would say that that's pretty much a no-win situation. Symbol, I have to wonder if that was a mistake from Symbol or if it was deliberate. He had 2 in gas, he now puts in 3 and is mining as quickly as he can. The Baneling Nest is, needless to say, the follow-up to this, and EGIdRA currently in the dark, hasn't been able to get anything into the base just yet. Should be able to do so. I don't know, maybe he can, and Metabolic Boost is certainly a lead here for Symbol, but it will be Ling Baneling for EGIdRA as well, but needless to say, slightly slower as a result of taking out of gas.
And EGIdRA droning still is taking a bit of a lead in terms of income, like a very, very short lead, because his Baneling Nest was delayed. He took out of gas. He had more minerals incoming, so he does have the economic lead, but the Baneling Nest is now finishing. EGIdRA sees it finish now in the base of Symbol. That triggers, should trigger an immediate Spine Crawler, which is coming down, but we do have one come for Symbol. There's already near completion, actually, and a defensive Baneling being morphed, so it looks like maybe, Symbol isn't going to take that aggressive option. Maybe he will sit back here, and, as he takes gases, he definitely is sitting back here.
Yep, it's going to push that spine crawler forward just a little bit, and ooh, it spots the banelings. That's a nice start here for SKMC. The cancellation there on the banelings immediately. A couple of lings just running by, trying to get information as much as they can, and he's able to just get a little bit of information, and then suicidally runs out the spawning pool, just smashing it with his head. And another couple of lings come in as well, and they should be able to get into the base and gain a full scout. He can confirm, well, he's already seen a baneling, so he doesn't even need to see that, and he's already seen the baneling nest come up anyway, so I guess that doesn't matter. And now the question is, where does he go from here? Well, it's lair tech for EGIdrA and it's roaches for SKMC, so it might be a case of SKMC just wanting to turn on the heat and finish EGIdrA off immediately. Admittedly, it is quite a large map to go full cross position with slow roaches, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, EGIdrA looks like he's teching towards Spire, especially if he takes the 4th gas shortly. SKMC doesn't know about it yet, but these lings approaching the natural could go in, but oh, look, that overload just outside EGIdRA's main base, pokes in, sees the layer morphing now, and naturally that's going to open up a timing here if SKMC wants to hit it, knowing that EGIdRA doesn't have any units here. So will he be building units? Will he just tech up and take a 3rd base of his own? You know, there's a couple of natural options here, but he's building 8 lings. No roaches, of course, but he takes a 4th gas, so it doesn't look like he's looking to punish EGIdRA at all for teching up faster than he is.
Oh, wow.
Oh, dear me.
That was a hit and a half. That was a huge baneling detonation. EGIdRA just ran right into that. That might trigger SKMC just to go right now. He's got 2 lings left, basically, and he's not building units, he's building drones. SKMC could actually just outright go for it. And there are 2 defensive banelings and a good wall off, though, so we'll see. SKMC could just go for it, though, and start to apply pressure, especially if he can pick those banelings off.
Yeah, that sucks for EGIdRA, because he has to throw down additional spine crawlers, which is never the wanted case. You want that to be a macro hatch, maybe, because, you know, 2 additional spine crawlers is almost a macro hatch. But we do see the infestation pit coming down from EGIdRA instead of the Spire, so he's going to have really, really early infestors, but... And actually, no, I don't say but, because EGIdRA does see that there's no 3rd base either for SKMC. So both of these guys know each other, have teched up on 2 base. Though SKMC is guessing that EGIdRA's gone Spire. That's why we see the Hydrogen, but few banelings do detonate there. That's okay for EGIdRA, though.
Yeah, we've got the little bit of a surround here by EGIdRA, able to clean up a couple of lings here and there. Army supply count, I mean, it's tiny for both at the moment. It really is. Yeah. Neither of these guys wants to really churn units just yet. There are 5 roaches coming out for SKMC. Roach Warren coming in for EGIdRA as well, and he's going to go Roach Infestor, whereas his opponent goes Roach Hydra. An interesting little matchup there. The question is, who do you think actually gets the advantage in that set?
Well, EGIdRA's going to have X amount of fungal growths, right? Because he's only got 4 fungal growths. He only has 4 infestors building, and especially if SKMC hits anytime soon. The problem is for EGIdRA, the Roach Warrior is so late, which is really, really weird here. He is working on +1 carrot pace, throwing down a macro hatch now, but... And we actually see SKMC see the Roach Warren completing. EGIdRA's on Ling Infestor right now. Like you said, the Roach army and Hydra army is building. Roach speed is about to finish. EGIdRA won't have Roach speed. He doesn't have any aggressive options for his roaches. So this is a little bit weird. And the only X amount of fungal growths means if the wave keeps coming, what is he really going to defend with?
Yeah, once the energy runs out, those infestors are basically dead weight, so that's not so great for him at all. Looks to get a 3rd and actually ends up getting denied by a bunch of rather brave lings. Also, Overlord sacked by the looks of it, or just killed as a result of these Hydralisks coming out, and that triggers a supply block here for EGIdRA. Not for too long, admittedly, but every little thing counts here. More drones coming out for SKMC, and he's pretending. I don't suppose he's pretending to be aggressive. He is getting aggressive. We've got spine crawlers now redeploying on this makeshift creep here, but he is droning very hard behind this.
Yeah, this is really good for SKMC, to be honest. I mean, EGIdRA's, with this defensive option, infestors, of course, can never run across the map, so EGIdRA's in a natural defensive state here, and SKMC taking full advantage of that, just by droning incredibly hard. He's at 63 drones now, and so look at the production tab, or can easily build more drones behind this if need be, but still, 63 base is pretty good for 3 base saturation, not fully saturated, but good enough. EGIdRA with 3 spine crawls on the low ground now as well, and we do have an overseer for SKMC coming in, and wow, contaminating the evolution chamber there, and this brings back nightmares of when EGIdRA played in the GSL against Xenia, where he couldn't actually build anything for the entire of the game and just lost to a push.
It's very, very good thing to do, actually, with the evolution chamber, especially if you've got double evolution chamber style. If you're able to just nail down contaminate and slow that down, you create timing windows that otherwise wouldn't have existed. It's a fairly underused strategy, but it's certainly cool to see it coming out in this series. We've now got EGIdrA starting to roll out. He has 22 roaches. The current upgrade level for him is not so great, honestly. And he doesn't really have a timing that he can hit here, maybe with +1 attack, I suppose, but even then, Symbol's on +2 already. Has Infestors and Hydralisks to back it up. I'm not rating EGIdRA's chances here.
Yeah, he's got to back off here a little bit, otherwise he will lose everything, of course. Oh, Jesus, the Infestors are burrowed, man. They could pop up in fungal growth. Uh-oh. Oh, no, EGIdRA.
Oh, the fungal growth is really nice too. I've got to say, that was a lot of damage. He's going to clean that up almost immediately, smash his way through there without too much of a problem, and EGIdRA takes a big hit there and doesn't really get anything for it. He's now relying on this defensive line. Admittedly, EGIdRA's now got 5 full energy Infestors. But the risk is that he's not defending the back here. Does he have visibility? He has no vision of the attack from the rear on his third.
And if he loses the high ground position, imagine EGIdRA walking up. Everything's going to get chain fungal growth here. So this is really, really bad for EG's EGIdRA.
Yeah, this is absolutely disastrous here. The third's looking to go down. The fungal is landed. There's... doesn't even bother to fight. There's the GG.
Oh, EGIdRA. Oh, it's funny, but you know he put himself in that situation. But dude, I was like getting wrapped up. Then I'm like, all right, let's do this, EGIdRA, and he just like leaves.
Let's fight. Funnily enough, he actually had an army supply advantage there. He did eat a fungal, I've got to say, but he could have counter-fungled. And bear in mind, Hydra's much more vulnerable to fungal than roaches. They would have died pretty much instantly. They're all clumped. A single fungal would have locked that area down, and would have got all the infestors as well. Oh dear. I mean, losing the third's terrible, and he was in a pretty bad economic position because Symbol had nicely saturated this third up to the top and was also taking a fourth as well, but what can I say? You know, you never win any fights that you don't get involved in to begin with. Yeah. And that's the case here with EGIdRA, unfortunately. Not really willing to see the game through to its completion and just saying, well, you know what? My brain says that I can't win this, and I want to, at some point, just go into EGIdRA's brain and flick a switch that says, don't listen to that. That little voice in your head is wrong. At least give it a shot, because you never know. You never know where you'll get if you do.
Yeah, I really do like the guerrilla tactics, man, from Symbol in these games. Like, game number 1, he's like toe-to-toe with EGIdRA, and does Nida Swarm, and then Roaches on the 4th, Infestors in the middle, and then in this game, he's like, alright, man, let's go toe-to-toe, I heard you like to play macro games, and then does that little cute tactic in the middle, a little sweep, or an undercut, whatever, into EGIdRA, and that was beautiful, really, and a little bit unfortunate for EGIdRA not to have vision. Like, I'm looking at the end of the replay, and he has, you know, he's in the middle. He's like, all right, if this guy's going to come for me, he's going to come through the middle.
Blind.
I don't understand why he wouldn't think about the rocks coming down and him taking the higher ground. And it's a mistake, man, and Symbol takes full advantage.
Yeah, he didn't even have creep spread to the back here, and he did have a spare queen that could have done that, so it's always good to have the creep spread. And in this area, I don't really want to be giving tactical advice to EGIdRA, but stick a spine crawler where I'm showing right here. Why not? Spread the creep up to that area just so you got vision. It reminds me of those old losses on Blistering Sands. You remember that? The classic days of, hey, we've got back rocks into our main. Better put a supply depot there. Same principle on the third on Antigua as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, and you have overlords. Like, if on the natural there's like 10 overlords that are easily expendable to just throw there. And EGIdRA, upon seeing the rocks, he can easily move into position to defend the third base there, I feel. And yeah. Oh well, that's really bad for EGIdRA. I mean, as we said at the start of the series, you know, this is a must-win series for him. He's going up against MC, ThorZaIN, and MVP in his remaining games. They are not easy games, and I really believe, even though Symbol is a fantastic player with a bunch of talent, that EGIdRA has to win the Zerg versus Zerg.
Well, too late for that, unfortunately. He goes down 2-0, not the good result that we were looking for there from EGIdRA. And here's hoping he can rally in the future games, because otherwise we could just see yet another Todd situation. This was his game to win. He is unable to do so, and now must go up against some very unpleasant players indeed in the rest of Group B. But not to worry, because as this is a Mirror Wednesday, we have a TVT to follow up from this ZvZ, and this is going to be great. We're going to be, after this break, bringing you the mighty Mighty mouzThorZaIN versus Incredible Miracles MVP. Oh yes, you know it, you want this one, and it's coming to you right after this.